peke hufanga hingahi whakatapu ko osi au whaki, kai atape mo te au, ke whakakato e kuwhatongia. Greetings in my language. Hello to the people of the land. I hail from the territory of the Ohlone tribe, the people of the Ramaytush. Hello. Hello to the ancestors who have marked and sacrificed themselves in order for me to be in this space. To the ancestors of education who are here with us today, Konai Helu, Hufanga, Okusmahina, to all the scholars who paved the way before us and who are here today. Dulo, to the ancestors that are no longer with us, Dr. Teresa Teawa, Dr. Ebeli Hauofa, and the rest of our scholars who are in spirit with us today. I ask that you please use me as a vessel, as a way for us to remember why we are here, who are we here for, and why we must continue. My talk today is titled Vakatasi, Research, Reimagining a Colonial Space through Talanoa and TaVa. With the introduction that Dr. Kehaulani did for me earlier, I won't go into it even more, but I wanted to just give some context on my title, Vakatasi. The Mana Learning Community is a learning community at the College of San Mateo where I work at. Vakatasi Pacifica is the name of our student organization that was titled and named by the students for their space. So I only think it is the right thing to do for me to title this Vakatasi, because it is my students who are the inspiration through this. I wanted to go through my guidance of Talanoa, even though Talanoa isn't supposed to be like this, but I wanted to kind of give you a little bit about what I'm going to be covering in the next 10 minutes. I also want to acknowledge that I'm only going to be talking for 10 minutes. And if Angela gave me a little bit more time, I would have given even more, but I can't do that. So I got only 10 minutes to do this. And I felt like being able to show what I'm going to go through will be a way for you guys to kind of mark things that if you have questions for me later on. The difference between education, knowledge, and the process of schooling. The confessions and lessons from me from a doctor's school of education. I'm going to be talking about the TaVa theory of reality. I'm going to be talking about Talanoa as a diaspora tool to complete writing assignments. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the Pacific study, how Pacific studies move beyond the academic walls of the classroom. Before I move on with the rest of my conversation, I want us to really think about this. Research and the process of schooling. Research, as a definition that I Googled, shows that it's a systematic investigation and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. But in our class, Professor Melissa Aliu, she always discusses about us breaking down the etymology of words. And I wanted to show it like this: research, research. If we're continuing to see things, to search for things, for new conclusions, search is to seek, and re is to continue, to keep doing it. And so as we continue to relook, there's going to be new conclusions that will come up. The process of schooling is what I want to use as a way for us to understand the formalization of education. So you can say the process of schooling is education, or the process of schooling is college, or the process of schooling is school, or the process of schooling is classrooms. But I really wanted to not use education as a word for this because it's not, that definition is not going to be the same for Western and for Pacifica. Our theme today is about Dr. Teresa Teawa's article on the canoe as a metaphorical, I mean, sorry, the classroom as a metaphorical canoe. And I started to go back into reading the article again because I also taught it in our class. And I wanted to look at some of the things that I wanted to highlight. And this is something that I wanted to show. The classroom, as we have inherited, is undoubtedly a colonial space. It is extremely difficult to indigenize the colonial classroom, which moves me into my doctoral journey. I graduated last year, and along me graduating last year, I had to write a dissertation. And in order for me to write a dissertation, I had to research. I had to look at things that I thought that I already knew, but I really didn't. And these are the things that I wanted to show with y'all, my community, because I think sometimes we say some stuff, but we don't really know where the foundation of what it means about this colonial spaces or the effects of it or the impacts of Western education. But let me show you some facts. In my research, I looked at the enrollment overall in community colleges has decreased in America. I have a lot of articles and data that I could show you, but I'd rather just have you ask me for it afterwards. Enrollment for NHPI communities has also decreased drastically as well. A lot of the reasons why that the conversations about this talks about is that in 2008 there was a high pitch of like people going back to school. That was during the recession, so the jobs were like plummeting. There was no jobs, so people went back to school naturally. Since 2010, when it hit its peak of enrollment, it has not gotten that high yet. So since 2010, it has continuously decreased. And when our people go to school, attend college here in America, and HBI students attend college, we don't stay. I drew some articles from New Zealand. I drew some articles from Australia. I drew some articles from here, from America in 4 years to show that we may start college, but we don't stay. Why is this significant? Because the reflections of not staying, I mean, the reasons of not staying does not reflect on the NHPI students. Rather, it reflects a larger conversation of our education institution. So I don't know about y'all, but I felt that people used to make it feel like it was our fault that we dropped out of college, that we didn't complete college, that we didn't finish our homework or whatever, right? But I started looking at the numbers that it's not just PIs, y'all. It's everybody in America. It is an American issue. So what does all these things have in common? Bruh, the structure of how we process our education, the process of schooling. So I kept like diving deep into this conversation of how we as America process the way we formalize schooling. This is was taken from a report of NHPI's enrollment in America. Shout out to the fam, Inoke Haufoka and Lavinia Oluwave, with our allies at UCLA for putting this report together, showing the education attainments for our group, NHPI groups, compared to America. Although you can see a little bit of similarities between the population ratio-wise, you also see some that has dropped drastically. Hint, hint, Tongans, hint, hint. And let me remind you what Teresa says in this article. In reality, if the chief or the navigator of the ocean-going canoe, process of schooling, is unfit, the lives of his crew are endangered. The life and death urgency and survival humility that features in pre-colonial Pacific societies is clearly lacking in most of our post-colonial education systems of pedagogies. To me, it means no wonder why we ain't doing well. The education system or the process of schooling here in America wasn't built for us. So of course we're gonna mess up. It's like building a canoe, but like you get there and there's no canoe. You're just like, oh, do it yourself. Thanks, America. I talk a lot of crap about American education, by the way. And so in my research, I explored and utilized and embraced so many different theories that we have in Puerto. And one theory that I kept thinking about that I realized that I was already doing within the 7 years of in the program was this concept of time and space. The TaVa theory of reality, central to this theory is the role of time, and Va, space. How it plays in the mutual attraction and repulsion in enabling a dance of change where all things in nature, mind, and society stand in an eternal process of relations, of cycle and exchange and returns. Basically, what Okusumahina was trying to say is that everything happens in reality, dimension of reality, in two things: time and space. Now, try to think about something that you're trying to do that you can do without the other. Yeah, you can't. If you can, hit me. I'm gonna show you that you can't. And so when I was doing my research into this concept of education in America, I started finding theories that were kind of maybe addressing what it was, but not so much. We had Aston theories of involvement, which also talked about I got my notes. There's just too much of my notes. I got 10 minutes. Anyways, theories of involvement and Tinto's integration model. Theory of involvement, Aston talked about how there's a deposit into the space where he highlights environment and that there's an outcome of the space. So what you put in is what you get. So Aston had the idea that environment conversations needed to happen on campus in order to understand why students weren't completing colleges. Then Tinto came in with his white face. And Tinto came in and said, yes, we have to figure out a way for them to adapt. Let me say adapt, quote unquote, assimilate into this space, and that they had too much baggage. You need to leave all that at home in order for you to be able to be successful and be able to retain your knowledge and complete college. That makes sense for people who don't have any family, for people who don't have any spirit or anything that has to do with it. But if you really think about it, even white people or white faces have families. They have lives. They have social emotional issues. They wasn't even going to be able to let that go. So both of these theories talked about what could be happening or what may be happening, but there was no like how to, because basically they're saying you're on your own, Missy. And so TaVa theory or TaVaism, it allowed me to replace these theories with this process of schooling with the concept that used my history, my lineage, my language, my religion, my family, my kakai, my land, my ocean, to connect what needs to happen in order for us to move forward. One of the tenets of TaVaism is knowledge. And it defines knowledge as an acknowledgement of time and space and va, which is seen through a process of education, knowledge investigation, or a process of education is then used as a practical purpose. So basically, thinking about when you have knowledge, you have to investigate this knowledge and you have to apply the knowledge. That's what TaVaism was talking about within ACO or education. In other words, we replaced the word of schooling or the word of education. I replaced it with ACO, the Tongan word for education or knowledge. The process of ACO is fostered through cultivated through Ta and Va, using humans as the depository of knowledge, therefore the producers of knowledge. So here I am looking at the theories of Aston and Tinto talking about pedagogies, they're talking about environment and whatever, yet not even talking about how we need to value humans who are actually the depository of knowledges. I'm over here again, really amped up. And then when you start thinking about Wako or Pacific education and knowledge, you start thinking about, you don't think about school, you think about church, you think about family, you think about these relationships, you think about your home. You don't think about social emotional issues like that, or all these concepts that we use here in America to be able to define what education is supposed to be about, or curriculum is supposed to be about. If we as humans are the depository of knowledge, then for us to be able to apply it, we have to apply it together. We have to apply it to each other. This is how I continue to reconceptualize what my classroom is supposed to look like, what education is supposed to look like, what me as an instructor, as an educator, as a servant to my people is supposed to look like. Within the TaVaism tenets and the knowledge tenets, or with the knowledge tenets, called is TaVa. TaVa is to nurture, Tauhi to nurture, Va, space, relationships. Together is a practice of nurturing relationships between nuclear families, kaingas. We could say ngahikolos, like your villages, or the Fanua, the country, the village, the kingdom, wherever you are, thinking about it from like a local relationship all the way to a macro, like a global of your island, the sea of islands. The aim of Tauhiva is to protect and nurture relations. The reason why I have to say this is because going back into what we talk about Rako and what we talk about education, and that we're replacing and reimagining the way America looks at education and the way that we practice education, we see this, Tauhiva. Then you start thinking about Teresa Teawa's article about cooperative learning, about trying to talk to your TA, on the other hand, talking to your class. And what I loved about listening or reading Teresa's article again and again and again is how much this is so big, so simple, yet we're looking for something else. We're looking for something else because this can't be the one. So for my research, as I was continuing to re-see, reimagine, re-look at the way that I process education in America, I came up with a method that would help me tell the white people, basically. Let me just say it like that. Tell the people who don't know us, is that I had to translate it. And so my method was using Talanoa, and then I also put in mana as a way for me to fuse David Favade's Talanoa definition with Linda Tuhiwai Smith's research justice concept, and then Django Paris's culturally sustaining pedagogy. I put those three together, and then I came up with Talanoa Amana. When I was supposed to implement my study to show the voices of Pacific Islanders in community college, what I was pissed about was like every time researchers come and use our students, they don't really get a benefit from it. Sure, you get a $20 gift card, but whatever, like that's done. But what you're giving them, your knowledge from your brain, is much more worth than that, right? And like to me, no shade on anyone giving people money for that. But with that, I kept thinking my privilege as an educator or as a teacher in accounting position, in accounting class for Mana, I can actually give them a grade for this. I can actually implement this into curriculum. So I used Talanoa as a diaspora tool to complete my writing assignments. Um, what we did was that we put articles together, 6 or 7 articles together. We had the students put into groups. We had them talk about it. We had them we had them write about it. So then we came together and we talked through these concepts. We had Tongan scholars, Samoan scholars, Pacific Islander scholars who came in to have conversations about that. Then the students went and wrote about it. Then they submitted it. Then I gave them a grade. it makes sense to me that cooperative learning also helps you with the writing process. Sometimes, oh no, students don't know how to write. I still don't know how to write, and I'm sure you can find some grammar up in this. And in order for us to show how can we navigate through these Talanoa, we have to be able to find validating tools to be able to do this. Laura Rendon said this. Gloria Lanson Billings said this. Bell Hooks said this. All of these scholars here in America continues to say there has to be tools, curriculum, and people in front of your face to tell the students that they can do it. The power of validating tools in the classrooms through culturally responsive curriculum and assignments. So basically, you just gotta walk the walk, talk the talk, and be everything at the same time. If I was to be in a Western way of doing this, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would have felt stressed. But as a Pacifica, I just treat everyone as family. That makes sense. If someone comes to late to class, I bust them out on Facebook. And let me just stop. Okay, we're gonna come back to this. With that, as my theory and my concept is Talanoa and TaVa. What does that look like? The consequences of this. Talanoa, man, y'all, we got a lot of baggage within ourselves. It's not our fault. It's not our parents' fault, but we got a lot of baggage in here. And we're not able to learn if we got all these things that we got to think about. This Talanoa was allowing our students to do that. They read concepts from Sefa Aina, from Emma Wolfgang Poliaki, all of these PI folks who look like them and are in these scholarship spaces, talking about our lives, the reason why our parents go to church and give all that money, and then there's no money at home for the bills, or you can't get new shoes. With these Talanoa, they were able to unpack this. There's nowhere else that they could do that. There's nowhere else that they can have that without the curriculum, without the cooperative learning, without this concept of understanding knowledge and knowledge production and reproduction. For that, when you're able to unpack stuff and when you're able to heal from stuff, that power that comes from that, of you feeling like you got this protective gear, right? That you got to protect the space, that you feel like you're being seen in your classroom, you're being seen in the campuses. You want to continue to reciprocate this. You want to continue to protect this. How does Vakatasi move? How does Vakatasi move as an academic canoe through the classroom? Is that we become everything for everyone. In that this is what I wanted to end with. At the College of San Mateo, our program, our students has become the spirit, the heart of my campus. And you're recording this, and I'm sure CSM's gonna see this, and I don't even care because they're gonna say, "Yep, she's right." We have become the spirit. We have become the people that come to when they feel like they're not being seen. Why? Because we continue to try to re-see ourselves, redeposit ourselves, finding this reciprocation. As a person of diaspora, that is what I've learned. Is that I have learned that what matters the most is that we have to understand that us as a diaspora, we may feel like we don't have a home there or here. Like I may not feel like I have a home in Tonga or here in America. But with this conversation, I'm actually the connection between Tonga and America. I am the diaspora. That is my power. I'm going to end there because I'm sure my time is up. All right.